It's time to bring it around town, SpongeBob. The yellow square dude is at it again. You can join SpongeBob and all his friends from Bikini Bottom for a soaking wet good time. Available on Gameboy Advanced PC and the PlayStation game console. Rated M.
SpongeBob Squarepants as a series has gotten to the age where you could use it as a method to guess someone's age range. How so? Well, think about it like this. The SpongeBob Squarepants movie came out in 2004. That means there are now fully functional adults who were born after the film's release. If you were the age of 10 when the show started in 1999, then by the time this video comes out in 2023, then you'd be turning 34 this year. Happy birthday, by the way, you beautiful bitch. Which did you play first? The original Battle for Bikini Bottom or the rehydrated remake? Cosmic Shake that came out this year could be some kid's very first SpongeBob game. Or you could be like me and have your first game be one of the first. Today on Cackling Pumpkins, we'll be talking about another childhood game of mine, SpongeBob SquarePants SuperSponge on the PS1. Now to clarify, SuperSponge is not the first SpongeBob game. The first is Legend of the Lost Spatula on the Game Boy Color that released in March 14th, 2001. The second is Operation Krabby Patty on PC in September 24th, 2001. Then SuperSponge on both the PS1 and the Game Boy Advance on November 5th, 2001, which makes it the third. So, while I never played the first SpongeBob game, I did start playing SpongeBob games in their first year. Now that I made the audience feel both old and existential of the constant, uncontrollable passage of time, let's get into the review. It's Patrick's birthday, and SpongeBob wants to do something special for him. He decides that an autograph from their items, Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, would be the best fit. But instead of doing the most basic of tasks and just be done with it, the two would rather send SpongeBob on needless fetch quests to try and scare him off.
Well, we are a bit busy right now, no rest for superheroes. Well, I know that Mermaid Man might consider signing one for a superhero snack.
Peanut butter, tomatoes, jelly.
But of course, SpongeBob is determined to make this the best birthday for Patrick. So he goes off on an adventure throughout Bikini Bottom. Honestly, the premise feels like it could actually work as an early episode of the show. While it isn't the most grand adventure for a video game, it still feels true to the series, especially the writing whenever SpongeBob returns to Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, as the two are constantly trying to get rid of him, which is something that actually could have happened in the show.
Look what I have got for you!
Look, kid, you're beginning to bug me now. One of my favorite kelp bars would be great. Hey, kid, you can only get them in Bikini Bottom.
You must go through 5 chapters, each with their own set of levels to find the objects that two retired superheroes desire. The game itself is pretty straightforward, and it even has other characters from the show appear in different levels to help you from time to time. It's not a particularly complicated game, nor is it that long as it just takes less than 2 hours to beat. But while it isn't that long or complicated, there is still a huge amount of problems that make it borderline frustrating. Visually, the game seems very confused. The game is a 2D platformer, with the platforms that are sometimes 3D and other times 2D. All of SpongeBob's friends are motionless 2D sprites, while with SpongeBob, I can't even tell if he's 2D or 3D. His simple animations and cartoonish facial features make it seem like he's a complicated 2D sprite, but certain animations at play, such as him looking down, makes him bend as if he's 3D. Perhaps they were trying to make a 3D object appear 2D, hence the black outline around SpongeBob. So, which is it? Well, it turns out that SpongeBob is actually an extremely simple 2D model that's ironically just a square. So they added an outline to give him more of a cartoony shape. Having a mix between 2D and 3D elements in 5th generation games is extremely common, but at least most of those other games like Crash Bandicoot are more consistent on what is and isn't 3D. All of the enemies, environments, and Crash himself is 3D, while items and certain effects are 2D. So despite it being a blend between the two, it still feels consistent. Keep in mind, Crash Bandicoot Warped came out in 1998, as this game came out in 2001, near the end of the PS1's life cycle. Perhaps maybe that was the problem. They knew the PS1 was near its end and wanted the game to be on a modern platform, hence why they have a Game Boy Advanced version. It's possible that this may have had an influence on the development of the game. the devs probably didn't have a good time with this one. Or maybe too much of a good time if you get what I'm saying, as there are files hidden in the game of sketches of SpongeBob porn. One of SpongeBob and Patrick going dog style, and another of Patrick roiling Sandy, and lastly there's a strange sketch of SpongeBob and BDSM attire. Now to something that most normal human beings won't find sexual, the strange enemies that don't match the style of the show at all. You get these weird slugs that they could have modeled after Gary just without a shell. Then there's these triangle fish things that not only don't match the show, but are impossible to hit. Speaking of enemies, in most 2D platformers, beating enemies should be simple, right? Unless the game is designed around combat, or it's something along the lines of a run-and-gun shooter, killing enemies should only take one action done with a simple input. In Mario, you simply jump on your opponents. In Sonic, you jump into them. In Mega Man, you use the Mega Buster or whatever weapon you have at them. These actions are all done with a single button press. Sure, some enemies might require a little more thought, but most of the time beating enemies should be simple and efficient. But in SpongeBob SuperSponge, they decide to make things more difficult. You can't simply jump on an enemy. You have two options, but both have their fair share of problems. First, you can ground pound on enemies. Simple, right? But this game is one of those titles that decided it was a good idea to make the ground pound the same button as your jump, meaning you might accidentally use it when you didn't mean to, which can lead to your own demise in some cases, such as panic jumping over a gap, but because you were panicking, you hit the jump button one too many times as you sail into the pit you were trying to avoid. This hasn't happened to me very often, thankfully, as the ground pound doesn't have too many uses outside of being used as a last resort to fight enemies. But the game doesn't even use all the PS1 controller's buttons. They had a decent amount of buttons that they could have assigned it to. I'm assuming this is another issue that came from developing the game for the Gameboy Advanced, as the console does have less buttons. Now, I don't know that much about game development, nor will I pretend to. But would it really be that difficult to make the input for the ground pound on a separate button from the jump on one of the many buttons you're not using? The second is throwing jellyfish at them. You do this by catching jellyfish that are flying across the stage using your fishing net, and throwing them as ammo. SpongeBob, did you not learn anything from Jellyfish Hunter? I don't say that episode came after this game, as Jellyfish Hunter was released September 28th, 2001, while this game came out on November 5th, 2001.
Doesn't that conflict with the overall message of the episode? This game is morally bankrupt. Kind of awkward.
Let's move on before I start sounding more like the cartoon community. The problem here is that when you shoot a jellyfish, they only bounce on the ground. You'd think they'd be able to shoot in a straight line considering they're already swimming around the stage, but nope. They can't even go up slopes, so the only enemies you can hit easily are ones directly in front of you. Sure, you can kill these unidentified flying fish if you were, but you are going to need to aim that shot perfectly. It's better just to run through the stage. You do get other items throughout the game that are way more useful. A gun that can actually shoot jellyfish in a single direction, the reef blower from the episode of the same name, that has the ability to suck up certain items as you can shoot them in several directions, and bubbles you can use as platforms. These items are way better than the default fishing net. If they were given to you as regular items you can switch between, along with the jellyfish net, as power-ups are treated as ammo instead, that would automatically make the game better. Heck, for the jellyfish gun, all they'd have to do is turn the jellyfish net into a move that purely just catches jellyfish and other items, as the gun and reef blower can shoot whatever you stocked up. In other words, the jellyfish net would be a method to regain ammo, and the gun would be a gun. And that would instantly make the game a point better. But not even these power-ups can save you from the enemy placement. In certain stages you may need to go through screen changes like you would in Mario after entering a pipe. But when you get to the other side, there's a chance an enemy is sitting right there waiting for you. Oh sure, that's fair. That's real nice. No, I really love that. That's great. Whee! I'm having a good time. Whee! Oops, I should have been more mindful of the enemy that just directly appeared on top of me. My mistake. Silly me. By the way, I never explained how health works in this game. Well, you see these golden spatulas? In games like Battle for Bikini Bottom, they were treated as important collectibles, the equivalent of Power Stars in Mario 64, but here, they're more like rings from Sonic, as they are your health. If you get hit, all your golden spatulas you collect fly out of you, as you must try to collect what's fallen to survive. Get hit with none, and it's death. but every time you get hit, SpongeBob releases the most blood-curdling scream. Jesus, man! This dude's dying in a war for his friend. It's real responsible of Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, making a poor young man risk his life just so they wouldn't have to sign an autograph. Real heroic. No wonder you're retired. But honestly, it is kind of funny. I wish more games had realistic screams when you take damage. But it's okay, we're at the end of the game now, Man Ray's lair. So Man Ray is the final boss of this game. I should have known, considering who we were helping throughout the entire game. It's gonna be a great battle. And oh, there he is! Oh well, bye Man Ray. Oh god, there he is again! There's another one! Oh sweet Jesus! Holy shrimp, he's everywhere! I can't do this! I can't do this! Oh sweet Neptune! Why didn't I suspect it sooner? The true final boss! The worst enemy in SpongeBob history! A random mutant robot fish dog thing! As we all know him, of course! Oh, there! I did it! Happy birthday, Patrick. I hope you never forget this day, 'cause I know I won't. This day will live in my mind, keeping me up at night until I finally enter Davy Jones's locker.